Hola, my name is Lady Diana. If it's your first time here, I am a sex and life coach, and today we're going to be talking about triggers. And this is answering a question that was posted on a previous video about fierce communication. And the question was so amazing that I thought a video would serve best than just writing an answer. So the question is, if your partner's wounding is triggered by your authentic sharing, what would be the best way to bring it up? Safety and trust is created over time. What if your partner is not ready to take your truth at that moment? And Anna, which is my amazing friend, she wanted some tangible tools around triggers and how to deal with it. So I love this so much. And I would say that the first thing I want to focus on is containers. And if you've never heard of a container, you don't know what it is, think of it as the conversation before the conversation. The foundation on which you're going to communicate or have an experience together. And this is actually the way that I start all my workshops and all my one-on-one journeys with my clients, is by first setting a container. So I'm gonna give you an example. I say, hey, I want to really honor our differences, right? That's like a big thing for me. I want to honor that we're all unique and that we're all different and that we come from different backgrounds. You know, I'm Dominican and I grew up in New York, but ended up traveling the world for 1,000 years. And that has given me a certain way to express myself or communicate that may be different from yours. You know, wherever you're coming from, whatever your upbringing was like, all those things affect the way that we communicate. So I say, in honor of our differences, I would love to create a safe space where we will have no judgment and a lot of compassion and empathy. That I want you to know I am coming from a space of love, and my intention here is to share my experience, to share what I've learned in order to help you navigate any challenges that you may be having around communication or sex. And if I trigger you in any way, if there's anything that I say that makes you feel anger, frustration, pain, anything that you don't want to feel in this moment, my intention is not to hurt you. My intention is not evil. So you see what I'm doing? So I create like a heads up and I say, hey, we may be going into some topics and some things could come off in a way that was not intended. Can we agree to some compassion and empathy around that as I learn to communicate with you, as I get to know you? Because we assume that we should know how the other person feels, how they communicate at any given time. And it's better to say, hey, I may not get this right, but my intention is not to hurt you in any way. So Anna, I would create a container, and in a container, I would talk about compassion, empathy, and no judgment. And this is something that my brother and I actually started doing so many years ago before I even knew what a container was. And we call it the no judgment zone. And we still have it today. And I could be like, Julio, can we enter the no judgment zone? And it's almost like a ritual. And when I say those words, he's like, yeah, I know that I can say something that could come off as mean or something that I just need to kind of vomit or let out. And maybe it's not fully articulated. Maybe it's not really what I intend. But there's a need for me to just let something out without being judged for it. And it's such a beautiful space that I have with him. And I actually also have that with my lover, that we agree, hey, I'm about to say some things that may not come off right. I need a little bit of no judgment here. So no judgment is key as a way not to take something personal. So creating a container, and I would add in the container, and this is how I literally like move on. I say, I invite you today to reframe the trigger as something that is bad, or to reframe the trigger as something that should be avoided. I actually invite you for you to see this trigger as a gift, for you to see this trigger as something that is being offered to you without any bad intention. And the minute you think of something as a gift instead of an attack, hopefully it just has a different feel to it, and you can look at it with different eyes. And the beautiful thing about gifts is that there's something juicy for you there. And in this case, it's information. And my mentor Jayama talks about a blinking light. How if there's a blinking light in your car, it's just, this is like a trigger. Is not trying to, light is not trying to attack you. The blinking light is not trying to hurt you. The blinking light is trying to tell you that there's an area that needs to be looked at, that there's something that needs to be paid attention to. And I just want to clarify, I'm not a trauma therapist, and it's not about re-traumatizing people. So we have to be very careful with that. So we don't want to re-traumatize anyone. But even in trauma therapy, at one point with your therapist, you create a safe space where you can, at your pace, lean into those things that are not making you feel good. Even in that setting with someone that specializes in that, you're gonna create a container. So it's first maybe creating the practice of creating containers, and with all that compassion, doing a trial and error is not something that you're gonna get right away maybe, but something that's gonna take a little bit of practice as you warm up to each other's communication styles. So creating a container, seeing it as a gift, and then getting curious about the gift. That it's pretty crucial. So, okay, you're not trying to attack me, and this trigger is actually a gift. Let me lean into it and see what's up, what's going on there. Why am I feeling like this when that person says that or talks about that or makes that gesture? And I want to say that for me, this was a tough lesson, because I would get really triggered by people that I would consider selfish, you know, and this is my biased story, my biased opinion in this moment. People that, like, if you ask them to help you, that they like put themselves first and don't help you, and I would get so triggered and upset by that. And they say, if you spot it, you got it. So if you're able to see something that makes you uncomfortable on another, there may be something that's being reflected back at you in an area similar to that. And for me, I had to be really honest with myself that my being triggered of people that I perceived as selfish because they were not helpful or they would put themselves first was a reflection back to me that I needed more boundaries. So I actually, in a way, wish that I could put certain boundaries the way other people do, because I always want to help and I always say yes. And that was affecting me. And because sometimes I need to say no. And sometimes I need to say, hey, I really need to take care of myself first. So that was a huge win and learning for me to say, oh, I'm triggered by people that have really big boundaries because I actually need to work on my boundaries. And maybe some resentment around boundaries that haven't really been honored and that are needed. So the container gives you so much juice, right? It gives you compassion. It gives you empathy. It gives you no judgment. It gives you a room for trial and error. It gives you room to reframe and see the trigger as a gift. And the person triggering you as the one offering you the opportunity to lean into something that really needs to be dealt with. And with that, I want to add, there's some self-accountability that is also another area or an opportunity to practice. Yeah, I feel bad when you say that, but what am I responsible for? What am I accountable for? Why can I be accountable for my own anger, my own frustration, my own sadness before I blame it on another? Can I look into that and see, what do I need here? What needs to be placed here so I can really look into this and see what needs to be healed or what needs to be digested or however you want to really call it. What needs to be, cleaned up. So, Anna, I hope that helps. This is definitely something that takes practice and something that we can get into deeper, even creating beautiful rituals of containers that really create strong intimacy. And this is something that I'm going to be diving into deeper in my workshop, The Art of Talk and Touch. Is this Saturday at Humanities from 4 to 6. If you happen to be in New York, in Brooklyn, I'm super excited, and we're gonna be going deeper and just creating very creative ways of experiencing containers and really juicy ways to build more trust. Because Anna, to your comment of trust getting built over time. I was recently actually watching a conference with Esther Perel, and they were discussing how trust doesn't get built with safety only, or when everything feels safe. That actually trust happens, or the strengthening of trust happens in the repair phase, right? There might be connection, disconnection, repair, right? So you're good, then you get into an argument, and then the making up phase, the repair phase, the reconnection phase, that is where all the juicy opportunities for trust are really available. And that when you reconnect, when you repair, is when you really strengthen that trust. So triggers, in a way, are actually opportunities to build more trust, to build more intimacy, and it's something that should be leaned into and not something that should be considered bad or something to run away from. So please leave a comment if you have more questions. Definitely, they're juicy. I'll create a video for them. If you're watching this on Facebook, you can also follow me on Instagram by Lady Diana. And if you're on Instagram, you can just hop over to Facebook on Lady Diana. Have a beautiful day, and let's lean into a little bit to those triggers and see what gift is there for us.